Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The storm over Tamil Nadu Minister Senthil Balaji escalated last night after Governor R.N. Ravi decided to dismiss him from the Tamil Nadu cabinet. But just 5 hours later, the order was kept in abeyance as the governor wanted to seek some legal opinion from the Attorney General. The damage, though, was already done. Soon a political war broke out and DMK leaders went all guns blazing against the governor. Chief Minister MK Stalin lashed out and said that governor does not have the right to dismiss his minister and his government will proceed legally in the matter. DMK's allies, Congress, also claimed vendetta by the centre. However, BJP Tamil Nadu chief K. Annamalai defended the move by the governor and reminded Stalin that in 2018 he asked then Governor Banwarilal Purohit to fire an AIADMK minister if he doesn't quit on his own after raids by the CBI. Even AIADMK targeted Stalin and his party for alleged double standard. Senthil Balaji was arrested, remember, on June 14 and is currently in jail in connection with cash for jobs scam during his tenure as Transport Minister from 2011 to 2015. However, despite serious allegations, Chief Minister Stalin has decided to retain him as a minister without portfolio, a decision that Governor Ravi decided to unilaterally override. If we look at other states, there are many leaders who've been lodged in jail and their respective CMs decided to either retain them or sack them. But when they did decide to sack them, that decision, be it in Bengal or Delhi, came from the Chief Minister and not the governor. So the question here clearly is, if the Tamil Nadu governor went beyond his powers as he tried to sack Senthil Balaji, we'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. First, let's take a look at the timeline of events yesterday. Last evening, almost exactly 24 hours ago, Tamil Nadu governor announced the sacking of Senthil Balaji. He wrote a 5-page letter to the chief minister and said that despite serious charges, the chief minister ignored governor's advice to sack the minister. Soon after, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister MK Stalin said that they will take a legal route against the governor's decision. But by 11:20 p.m. last night, Governor Ravi decided to seek legal opinion from the Attorney General. But this came as 12 a.m. midnight, Governor informed the Chief Minister that the dismissal order is now kept in abeyance and this decision was taken after Home Minister Amit Shah spoke to the governor. The Chief Minister since then has announced that Senthil will indeed continue as a minister without portfolio. But does the governor really have the powers to sack a minister? That's the billion-dollar question. Article 164(1) states that ministers shall hold office during, quote, the pleasure of the governor. But Article 164(1) also states that the governor can appoint a minister only on the recommendation of the chief minister. What does the Constitution say on the governor's role? He is head of the state's executive power and barring some matters, he acts on the advice of the Council of Ministers. But it also says clearly the governor's pleasure, which I mentioned earlier, continues in the constitutional sense as long as the government enjoys a majority. The matter becomes clearer when you look at the judgments by the Supreme Court on the powers of the governor. In Shamsher Singh versus State of Punjab in 1974, the top court stated that the president and governor shall exercise their powers in accordance with the advice of ministers. However, there can be a few well-known exceptional situations according to the apex court. These situations may arise if the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister concerned cease to command majority in the House. The Supreme Court also stated that the President or Governor should avoid getting into the politics of the state. In Nabam Rebia versus Arunachal Pradesh Deputy Speaker case of 2016, the Supreme Court said the Governor has no function which he or she can discharge by himself. The apex court also observed that the Governor, though, has certain duties to perform and the House will do well to bear in mind this distinction. We'll get you some clarity on whether the governor really had powers to make this decision or not. Many legal experts are joining us in just a bit. And that's a big debate. Did Governor Ravi go beyond his powers and overplay his hand this time?
sought the opinion of the Home Ministry, or whether Home Ministry had instructed him or he sought the opinion of the Home Ministry, we must know. If he had sought the opinion of the Home Ministry, then he is a misfit to be a governor.
ये तो मैं कंडम करता हूँ। डीएमके को सताने के लिए, स्टालिन के गवर्नमेंट को डिस्टेबलाइज करने के लिए ये पूरी कोशिश चल रही है।
The whole of Tamil Nadu knows Mr. Senthil Balaji is a corrupt minister. It is the bounden duty of Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu to keep his cabinet neat and clean, which is not doing it.
We've been saying that Mr. Stalin is the most incompetent CM Tamil Nadu has ever witnessed, and his actions are proving the same.
Let's go across to the guest joining us. Aman Lekhi is Senior Advocate in the Supreme Court of India and former Additional Solicitor General of India. Vinod P. Selvam is BJP spokesperson. R. Rajagopalan is a senior journalist. Salim Dharanidharan is from the DMK. And C.B. Pandey is former legal advisor to the governor of Uttar Pradesh. I want to go across to Aman Lekhi first up, former Assistant Solicitor General. Now, the governor has announced that he will take the opinion of the Attorney General as far as this decision to sack the cabinet minister is concerned. What do you think the advice of the Attorney General will be? Does the governor have the power to sack a minister?
No, absolutely not. It's a constitutionally imprudent act unbecoming of the governor. Our constitution doesn't in any way permit parallel administration, and as far as the role of the governor is concerned, his involvement in the affairs has been nominal, the real executive being the Council of Ministers. The constitution is absolutely emphatic. When you look at the constitution, insofar as the governor is concerned, he has to act. The constitution, in fact, the Article 154 itself stipulates that he has to act in accordance with the constitution. When you talk about in accordance with the constitution and we talk about the entitlement for minister to continue, there are certain qualifications and disqualifications in the constitution itself, which are manifested in 173 and 191 of the constitution. So the particular person doesn't in fact suffer the disqualification, nor is he in any case in a position where anyone can legitimately allege, notwithstanding the criminal case, that he lacks qualifications. Insofar as the reason which he has given, that prerogative, as unlimited prerogative, is unknown to the Constitution. It is subject to law, has to be exercised in accordance with the terms, and the entitlement that the governor has claimed for himself is something which is completely unknown to the Constitution.
All right.
For him to take the opinion of the Attorney General after having dismissed it itself shows that how completely out of form this entire conduct is. And a step as unprecedented as this, a step as extreme as this, a step as impermissible in the settled constitutional scheme, colliding as it does with the absolutely established constitutional precepts, ought to have been preceded by adequate deliberation. And had it been so preceded, we would not have faced this so unseemly and improper situation which we are seeing today.
All right. I think you've made it quite clear as far as the powers of the governor are concerned. But let me also ask you this follow-up. The governor maintains that he has already advised the chief minister to sack this said minister, and there were certain reasons for it, the minister's history and conduct. He feared that there cannot be a proper investigation as long as he continues to be a minister. Would you say that it is also incumbent on the chief minister to at least consider the governor's request in such matters, or provide answers as to why he's not sacking the said minister?
You see, as far as the interaction with the governor and chief minister is concerned, that moves in the realm of constitutional propriety and brings in question of constitutional morality. Ideally speaking, a person with criminal antecedents should not be in the Council of Ministers. The point is, unfortunately, the way in which our constitutional scheme is devised, merely because there is an accusation of criminal conduct against a particular person, doesn't in any way disqualify him. For disqualification, it has to be one under the Representation of People Act, or which entails conviction, or other grounds which are stipulated in the Constitution itself. No matter how reprehensible it might seem that a person against whom such accusations have been made continues to be in the Council of Ministers, there is no bar in the Constitution from his so continuing, the matter being one in the realm of the conscience of the Chief Minister in this particular case, and his alignment with the sense of propriety. But the legality of it is completely not open to doubt. And as far as the governor is concerned, the governor is so keen to uphold the law. The governor should also be aware of the limits on his own power. And while purporting to enforce the law, he should not violate the law himself because he is sworn to act in terms of it. The Constitution contains limits. It sets out the constraints and specifies the area within which the constitutional functionaries must act. And the actions of the governor are in clear transgression of those limits.
All right. So there is the political aspect. There's, of course, the legal aspect. Aman Lekhi, I do thank you for joining us. And, of course, he's made the legal argument very, very clear. And possibly that is why the Tamil Nadu governor, Mr. Ravi, has had to rescind his order, has had to re-look at it. Let me take this debate forward with our other guests. On that note, let me go across to our BJP representative. You know, this only strengthens the DMK's argument that the governor is motivated against the current government. There was no need for the governor to act in this manner when he clearly did not have those powers.
Ma'am, let me make this very clear on the show that the BJP is not the spokesperson of the Raj Bhavan. Unfortunately, it is a very shameful to note that even after so many allegations have been mounted against a said minister, after coming to light that he has swindled crores of money with the promise of offering jobs in the government transport department, especially where he was minister, the chief minister has failed to act. Now, there is not one person. The reason, I understand. I'll get to that in just a bit. I'll get to the case in just a bit. Vinodji. But, you know, the reason I ask you this question is because you've come out supporting the governor's actions. We have not, nowhere have we come out supporting the governor's actions. We are saying that Senthil Balaji should be dismissed. We are not getting into the dispute or the legal angle of whether what he has done is right or wrong. But we are of the stand that Senthil Balaji should be dismissed and he should face law as a common man after having such serious allegations leveled against him. Especially after the Supreme Court itself has come down heavily and said cases should be, the trial should be conducted against the conduct of Senthil Balaji. It is the duty of the Chief Minister to make sure that he has been asked to leave the ministry. But what have you done? 37 ministers go and sit in the government hospital at 2 a.m. in the midnight to save one man who the Chief Minister himself called corrupt. No one else. He was in fact the first person in 2016 who came out so heavily on Senthil Balaji, calling him corrupt. But it is very unfortunate that none of these ministers ever came out of their residence at 1 a.m. in the night for the sake of the 7 crore people of Tamil Nadu. But for one man, Senthil Balaji, the entire cabinet of ministers sat the entire night to save him.
This is not
so who are you trying to save? Or what are you trying to save?
This is not to go into the merit of the charges against Senthil Balaji. And I discussed that on the day that his arrest was made. This is indeed a very curious case, politically and legally. Politically, the DMK has in the past attacked this very same minister when he was in the AIADMK, Mr. Stalin himself. And then legally, there are many points in this case where he received extraordinary relief by the High Court. But the Supreme Court had to step in at various points to ensure that the man is held accountable for his alleged crimes. But let me also stick to the issue of the governor today. I'll go to the DMK representative in just a bit. C.B. Pandey is former legal advisor to the governor of Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Pandey, do you believe the governor was misinformed or misadvised in this case that he could sack a minister despite the chief minister not agreeing to it?
This is a peculiar case. And so far as the general law is concerned, as per Article 164(1), the governor has no discretionary power. Though he has to act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. This is general principle. And there is no dispute with regard to this law settled by the Supreme Court, as you mentioned, in different, some says in case and later Deputy Speaker case and all that. So though there is no discretionary power of the governor to act in such matter in the point, but at the same time, chief in the number of cases, it is not a bar. There is no bar to exercise his discretionary power as far as, for example, appointment of chief minister. the appointment of chief minister, in the case of the appointment of chief minister, governor exercises a discretionary power.
True.
It not act on the council of ministers. That is one exception. Like that, there are other exceptions also. Here in this particular case, if I am talking about this particular case, so far general law is concerned, a governor has no power to dismiss a minister or to dismiss a chief minister. He has no power. But this area, but in this particular situation, this issue has never been discussed before a Supreme Court or High Court, that in such situation where a man who is a criminal, who has been involved in so many criminal cases, or who has been committing some crime, suppose he had committed some murder. It's a corruption case, but suppose he has committed murder, and governor advised the chief minister to dismiss him, and he is not chief minister doesn't care about the governor's advice. So in that situation, whether the constitution is will be interpreted in a manner that no, he will continue even as a murderer in the cabinet, in the council of ministers.
No, but that's the,
So
I mean, whether we like it
situation,
or not. Mr. Pandit, I asked exactly that question to Aman Lekhi earlier. And, you know, he said that whether we like it or not, propriety-wise, obviously somebody with such charges should not continue to be a minister, even without portfolio. But there is no legal bar. And certainly the governor does not have the powers
There is no,
to ask the chief minister to sack
no,
that
here,
minister.
that is what I'm saying. In certain cases, in the Uttar Pradesh, I know one of the example. The Mulayam Singh was the chief minister, and Mayawati at that time, Mayawati, there was large violence against the Mayawati, who was to be appointed as the chief minister, and the governor dismissed the Mulayam Singh without directing for any floor test or something else.
Yeah.
So he straightway dismissed the chief minister, and that was not challenged before any court.
Yeah, no,
And,
I understand that, sir. There is indeed, as I said at the start of the
because he is not
show.
having majority.
No, exactly. I said this at the start of the show as we explained the powers of the governor. When it comes to deciding who should be the chief minister or whether the current government exercises majority or not, the governor indeed has discretionary powers. But not so much in deciding who should be the minister and whether a minister should continue or not.
The whole right. That is why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that this issue has not been interpreted by the Supreme Court in the situation where a person who is a minister, though the Supreme Court has said that he has no discretionary power, but he has not said that he absolutely has no power, discretionary power. In some cases, he has to exercise the discretion. But now, in this particular case, whether he can exercise discretion or not, this has to be
possibly looked into. Okay, I don't know whether this matter will go to court anymore, because it seems like the governor himself has, rescinded his order at least partially or kept it in abeyance. So that brings me to Salem Daradanaran. The allegation against your government is that, you're insisting on keeping this minister in the cabinet. And also the allegation of double speak, where you yourself asked a former governor to sack a minister on charges of corruption. If you made that demand then, you certainly must have believed the governor has that power.
No. We wanted the governor to pressurize on sacking the corrupt minister. See, the constitution makes it very, very clear, right? The constitutional bench of the Supreme Court, as recent as Justice Nehal Nageshwar Rao and Pereiravan case, had told that governors are nothing but shorthand expression of the state council of ministers. The first and foremost, how does the democracy work in this country? People elect their representative, that is the MLAs. The MLAs in turn select a chief minister, and the chief minister who has the majority confidence of the MLAs is invited by the governor to form the government, and the chief minister is instated as chief minister by the governor, and then based on the advice of the chief minister, ministers are appointed. Agreed that the ministers stay as ministers based on the pleasure of the governor. But where does the governor get his pleasure from? He gets his pleasure from the State Council of Ministers represented by the Chief Minister.
No, but answer the political question. Why are you seeking to keep this minister who's in ED custody and has serious charges against him in the cabinet without a portfolio? What political grandstanding are you doing?
So why did Honorable now Prime Minister Modi, when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, keep Amit Shah as a minister when he was facing jail term for a murder case? Of course, he was acquitted, but then he was not. He was arrested by CBI. Why did Modi keep him? See, the prerogative lies with the with my Chief Minister. and he has chosen to keep him as a minister without portfolio.
But you asked the previous government for their minister to be sacked on the charges of corruption.
So, has it been proved? The court will decide is corrupt or not.
It wasn't proved then either. Doesn't it show double speak on your part?
Yeah, I'm saying the matter is sub judice.
Right.
Why go into matter that is sub judice? And this will set a bad precedent. Why we are protesting is this will set a bad precedent. I'll tell you why. You'll have to listen. Because Enforcement Directorate is behaving like an arm of the BJP party. The number of cases filed by Enforcement Directorate increased by 10 times in the last 10 years. And the conviction rate is 0.05%.
No, I'm not sure in this case that argument makes sense. One second. I'm not sure in this case this argument makes sense.
Very important.
Yes.
Very important.
Yeah.
I want to complete this. So, Mukul Roy from from TMC facing ED or CBI, arrested, joins BJP, the charges are dropped. Again, he goes back, charges come. So, which means
I get your point. We've discussed that at many occasions. Like I said, I'm not sure these arguments stand in this case because one second, the case pertains to well before your government came to power. This minister has been in dock and under investigation when he was previously in a different party. The period is also mostly before the BJP government came to power at the center. This minister has been asked to be probed by the Supreme Court of India. Despite the fact that the High Court gave orders like you can start a probe afresh but don't go back into any of the evidences previously. This minister went to court saying, I've given back the money that I took from job aspirants. So now we've come to an agreement. The High Court apparently even accepted it. It was later challenged. This case is not normal, like charges that have just come in and investigations that are carrying on. This is a well-established case where the Supreme Court said that if the officers don't investigate, we will appoint an officer to investigate this man. So please don't pin this on the agencies alone. I don't think it matters in this case. But yes, Mr. Vinod wanted to come in very quickly. I have to go to R. Rajagopalan as well.
No, see, you don't get me enough time. Can I speak? I think you were speaking, so I couldn't even make my point. So it'd be nice if I can make my point across. Can I?
Yeah, please take 30 seconds more.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is, this Senthil Balaji's, this particular case, DMK has nothing to do with it. This is what been my stand. My leader stand also, when he joined the party itself, he said, we have nothing to do with the case. But the point is how ED is behaving. If this is allowed, what will happen is, ED will go and randomly arrest opposition leaders and then governors will sack them.
Okay, right? I don't think the word randomly is appropriate here. No, I don't think the word randomly is appropriate here. That's exactly what I established. You made your point. Let me go across to Vinod Selvam. 30 seconds, please. You wanted to object, and then I go to R. Rajagopalan.
No, my good friend Dharni Salom has been speaking all this, but in this entire 2 minutes which he spoke, he was not able to say that Senthil Balaji is not a corrupt man and he is not to be blamed. No, they cannot do that because it is your same chief minister.
I'm saying the court will decide. It's a matter that is sub judice.
2018 had come out and said the Vijay Bhaskar, the AIADMK minister, the tainted AIADMK minister who had Gudka charges against him, should be dismissed from the government by the same governor who they are talking about today. So then you felt that he had the constitutional authority to dismiss a minister. So in 2018 you had a version. Now you have a different version. Not only that, you went to the extent of saying that the chief minister and the deputy chief minister should also be sacked. So you wanted the entire government to resign. You wanted the government to resign entirely in 2018 and you felt that the same governor has authority to do that. You wanted the governor to safeguard the state. Today what happened? Today when the governor did something on that sort, you have all the problems in the world. In 2018, did the chief minister tweet this or not? I have the tweet with me. Did he tweet this or not? He tweeted this. He gave a statement saying Vijay Bhaskar should be sacked, the CM should resign, the deputy CM should resign. He said this. So, MK Stalin 1.0.
See.
One second, I have to cut out of this. One second, Mr. Daldara, you've had your opportunity to explain yourself. R. Rajagopalan hasn't spoken. Let me go across to him. R. Rajagopalan and me. Mr. Rajagopalan, my question to you as someone who watches Tamil Nadu politics very closely is, did the governor overplay his hand? And will this eventually end up straining the governor versus the government relationship further? But in this case, ending up embarrassing the governor's house?
Shivani, in Tamil Nadu, you must know, the DMK's official organ Moraswali daily in and out heckling Mr. R. N. Ravi. R.N. Ravi is supposed to have this type of reactions. R.N. Ravi is the governor of Tamil Nadu. Is faced with three conditions: medical, political, legal. Now AIADMK represented to the governor, BJP represented to the governor about Senthil Balaji. Why the DMK is so sacrosanct of the Senthil Balaji? He is a party hopper. 5 parties he has shifted. Why should DMK go after? Because there is a fact to that. As you exactly cornered the DMK spokesperson, the DMK spokesperson did not reply to you properly. It is a Supreme Court monitored case, nothing to do with the Enforcement Directorate. So therefore,
Supreme Court,
coming, wait, I did not speak in front.
Let him finish. Mr. Dharan, let him finish.
I did not interfere when you spoke, Mr. Dharan. Behave properly in the national debate. My understanding is DMK is having some sort of affection towards the Senthil Balaji because there is another minister in Tamil Nadu government who spoke on phone about 30 crores scam by the son and son-in-law, and that is interconnected. There is another case before the ED investigating the tape record and the conversation between Pete Thiagarajan and a journalist. So therefore, it is all intertwined.
Okay.
My understanding, governor has powers to seek the dismissal of this minister. Since CM did not do that, governor acted upon that.
Okay, but the very fact that Home Minister Amit Shah speaks to him and then the governor puts his order in abeyance shows that even the BJP is not very comfortable with what transpired. That's the question I'm asking you politically.
Politically, yes, you are right. Absolutely, you are right. Unless there is UCC coming up before this parliament and G20 is coming before in September, Prime Minister does not want any sort of legal things before these two incidents happen.
Okay.
Two major issues resolved. That is why at the advice of the Prime Minister, Mr. Home Minister Amit Shah asked the governor to do this, to seek a legal opinion. Yes, it is political. Yes, it is embarrassing DMK. But my understanding is it is much more embarrassing MK Stalin, the Chief Minister, not the BJP. Because why should Mr. MK Stalin so sacrosanct about this particular minister?
Well, that's a question they'll continue to face. That's a question they will continue to face. And of course, that question will not be erased by the fact that this has transpired. I've run out of time. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Moving on, while the centre is mulling bringing the UCC in, law committee appointed by the Uttarakhand government for UCC has also finished its work and will submit it to the government soon. Over 2 lakh people expressed their views to the panel and all shades of opinions were considered. The draft was prepared after looking into various statutes and uncodified laws, including statutory framework in other select countries as well. The panel has given various recommendations like registration of marriage to be made mandatory, polygamy to be prohibited, and an upper cap on number of children by a couple to control population. Listen.
The committee also interacted with the representatives of political parties, state statutory commissions, as well as with leaders of various religious denominations. The Honourable Chairperson of the Law Commission of India had requested for an interaction with the members of the expert committee. The committee has painstakingly taken into account all shades of opinions and looked into the various statutes and uncodified laws, including the statutory framework in select countries. Besides, the committee has tried to understand the finer nuances of the various customary practices that prevail in different parts of the state. It gives me immense pleasure to inform you that the drafting of the proposed Uniform Civil Code of Uttarakhand is now complete.
साथ मौजूद हैं मुख्यमंत्री पुष्कर सिंह धामी। आज यूसीसी ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी ने ये ऐलान किया है कि उन्होंने पूरा ड्राफ्ट तैयार कर लिया है, इसे जल्द ही सरकार को सौंप दिया जाएगा। सर, पहली क्या प्रतिक्रिया रहने वाली?
नहीं, मैं उनको बधाई देना चाहता हूं जिन्होंने इस कमेटी में पिछले 1 साल से भी अधिक समय तक काम किया है और बहुत परिश्रम किया है। लोगों ने बहुत लोगों से बात की है, 2 लाख से भी ज़्यादा लोगों से उन्होंने उनके सुझाव लिए हैं और विद्वान लोगों ने इसमें अपने राय दी है, अपना सहयोग दिया है, वो सम्मिलित रहे हैं और सबके सहयोग से, सबके सम्मेलन से ड्राफ्ट कंप्लीटता की ओर जा रहा है, पूरी तरह से ड्राफ्ट तैयार हो रहा है, वो निश्चित रूप से अच्छा ड्राफ्ट आएगा और भारत के संविधान की मूल धारा 44 का जो प्रावधान किया गया है उसके भावनाओं के अंतर्गत ही सभी वर्गों की राय लेकर वो ड्राफ्ट तैयार होगा। और उत्तराखंड की सरकार, जिसके लिए हमने पहले ही इस आम चुनाव से पहले हमने उत्तराखंड की देवतुल्य जनता के सामने ये प्रस्ताव रखा था, संकल्प रखा था, और ये उत्तराखंड की देवतुल्य जनता ने भी हमको इसमें अपना समर्थन दिया, अपना आशीर्वाद दिया और पूरा मैंडेट दिया और हमको सेवा करने का अवसर दिया। और उन्होंने ही एक तरह से हमको कहा कि आप आगे बढ़िए, यूसीसी उत्तराखंड में लागू करिए, तो हम उस दिशा में आगे बढ़ गए।
Well, UCC is dominating headlines. Overall, there is a staunch opposition to the central government's move to consider UCC, as Law Commission has also invited opinions on it. I'm joined by lawyer and Congress MP Manish Tiwari, who has called UCC unnecessary. So you came out earlier, Mr. Tiwari, saying that this is nothing but an attempt towards appeasement. Why do you say that?
But I never said that. I said it's a dog whistle.
Right.
It's an attempt to polarize, for the simple reason that there already exists a uniform civil code. If you read the Special Marriages Act, 1954, in juxtaposition with the Indian Succession Act, it's a complete uniform civil code. After all, what is a civil code? A civil code is that is religion agnostic. For example, if the Hindus have to get married, they can get married under they usually get married under the Hindu Marriage Act.
Yes.
If the Sikhs have to get married, they get married under the Anand Marriage Act. If the Muslims have to get married, they get married under the Muslim personal laws. If the Christians have to get married, they get married according to Christian traditions or under the statute which governs their personal law.
Yes.
However, if you choose not to get married under any of these statutes, you can get married under the Special Marriages Act, like I did. So therefore, that is religion agnostic. So there already exists a uniform civil code. And that's why I'm saying that this is a complete bogey.
Right. You're talking about people who can voluntarily choose to get married under the Special Marriage Act, and I get that. But that does not mean that there cannot be any codifying of other personal laws, succession, adoption, divorce, etc., that the UCC will deal with. I ask this because there are many women, particularly Muslim women, who've been fighting for these rights, which they don't get under the Muslim personal law.
That's why I'm saying it's a dog whistle. And you advertently or inadvertently actually named the community at which, unfortunately, this is targeted. The short point is that personal laws or traditions and conventions actually predate the law. And therefore, within those laws also there is a lot of diversity. For example, the Hindu Marriage Act was codified, right? Now, under the Hindu Marriage Act, there are actually a myriad ways in which you can get married, right? The Hindu Marriage Act does not recognize Pinda relationships. That is, if there is a relationship going 5 degrees on the father's side and 3 degrees on the mother's side, that marriage is void ab initio. But there is an exception to that. You know, the marriage between an uncle and a niece, or a chacha and his bhatiji, are recognized because there is an exception within the law. Now, for example, if the parliament enacted or legislated the Anand Marriage Act, right? Do you think that the Sikh community is going to agree that the Anand Marriage Act should be repealed and it should be replaced by a religious agnostic law? I don't think so. I represent a constituency where the Sikh faith was consecrated. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj actually consecrated the Khalsa Panth on the 13th April 1699 in Sri Anandpur Sahib. The battle to get the Anand Marriage Act enacted was a very, very hard-fought battle.
Okay.
Now, therefore, under those circumstances, Do you think that the Sikh community would agree that the Anand Marriage Act be repealed and replaced with a religious agnostic law? I don't think so. So under those circumstances, that is why I say this is a bogey, it's a dog whistle.
But you're talking about my question, talking about one community. Your answer itself suggests that it will affect all communities. So how is it a dog whistle for one community? And it's not so much about how the marriages are solemnized or which marriages are solemnized. It's also about the rights that flow from a marriage. But as you very rightly pointed out, the Hindu Marriage Act will be affected, Sikhs will be impacted, other communities will be impacted. So why is it that UCC is projected as if it is against one community alone?
Well, for the simple reason that the people who are the progenitors of this are essentially going at it with a particular mindset in mind. Otherwise, you see, when you talk about a uniform civil code, where is the draft of the uniform civil code? As there was an earlier law commission which categorically said that given the diversity of India, there is absolutely no need for a uniform civil code, right? There are large number of tribes in this country who actually follow their own customary law, not only confined to the Northeast. So after having studied the entire panoply of the diverse customs and practices which are prevalent in the Indian milieu, a law commission concluded that there is absolutely no case for a uniform civil code. So under those circumstances, when you suddenly revive this debate, it's obvious that it is just another attempt to further the agenda of polarization.
Okay, I'm guessing your attack is, of course, towards the current government led by the BJP. Now, the BJP says that the fundamental argument for UCC comes from the Constitution itself. It's a directive principle. And Supreme and High Courts also have, over the years, backed a UCC and asked for a UCC. So they say they are only fulfilling that requirement. What's wrong with that?
Well, then they don't understand the Constitution of India. The directive principles of state policy are not mandatory. They may be aspirational or they may be declaratory, but they are by no stretch of imagination mandatory. If the makers or the framers of the Constitution wanted to make the Uniform Civil Code as mandatory, they would have put it in the section on fundamental rights. They would have made it an article of the Constitution of India. After all, the Constitution of India was expansive in its vision. You know, one of the articles of the Constitution abolished untouchability, right, which was intrinsic to a certain faith. They abolished begar, right, which was forced labor. So therefore, if they would have in their wisdom thought that the Uniform Civil Code was essential for this country, they would have incorporated it into the Constitution. They gave universal adult suffrage at a point in time when 90% of this country was illiterate. So therefore, I think to fire the gun from the shoulders of the framers of the Constitution is both a misread of the Constitution or much worse, ignorance of the Constitution.
Okay, fair enough. My question fundamentally is that, you know, there are many personal laws, and this isn't just about one community. Many personal laws run foul of the fundamental rights that the Constitution provides to all citizens, most important of them being equality under Indian laws. Don't you think that particularly from the framework of gender equality and gender justice, we do need to do away with discriminatory practices under various personal laws?
Well, you ask a very, very complex question to which there is no binary answer. And the reason why I say that is that if you were to read the American press today, the US Supreme Court has come out with a ruling in which they have reinterpreted the entire meaning of equality. For example, they've done away with affirmative action. They have said that affirmative action, which in our country is called reservation, falls foul of the entire doctrine of equality in the US Constitution. So if I were to extend that argument of yours, the equality argument further, then under those circumstances, a lot which has been done under Article 15 and 16 of the Constitution would then fall foul of that right to equality.
Yes, but people will argue the personal laws are running foul of that right to equality. That's exactly my question, which I'll ask again. That there are personal laws that tend to be patriarchal and anti-women. Don't you think that women deserve equality by way of UCC, where they do not have to be subjected to personal laws which are gender discriminatory?
You're confusing two things. You're confusing the right to equality with the inherent or manifest injustice which is there in certain personal laws. Now, the impulse to reform those personal laws have to come from within those communities. After all, the reforms which have taken place over the years in personal laws across the country, across the world, the impulse has come from within the communities. And the argument which I was trying to make, which possibly I wasn't able to convey because my English is not so good, when you talk about the right to equality, how do you interpret equality is extremely subjective. Like the US Supreme Court has interpreted equality to mean that there is no need for affirmative action. So therefore, you're entering into a minefield when you try and sort of make the argument of equality, even vis-a-vis personal laws.
Okay, you said that reforms in the Indian community or globally have been self-brought, but that's not true for India, and particularly in context of this debate. The Hindu Code was not brought in by asking the community at large or when they were ready. It was done by the government and was accepted. So why should that not be the case for other communities? If that's the argument.
Well, then you reform their personal laws. Nobody is saying that don't reform their personal laws. If there is inequality, or let us say inherent gender injustice that you talk about, there's nothing which stops you from reforming those personal laws. But where is the case to completely and absolutely demolish the diversity of India and put it under the rubric of uniformity? In fact, the strength of India is its internal cohesion, and that internal cohesion doesn't come out of uniformity. It comes out of diversity. And that's why it is said unity and diversity is the strength of India. Uniform civil code completely and absolutely will militate against that diversity. And you are already seeing that when you are not able to handle diversity properly, then you have a situation like the one that we are having in Manipur currently.
Okay, I'll leave it on that note. Manish Tiwari, I do appreciate your time for elucidating your point of view. We'll have to wait and see what the Congress party decides as a party, because they haven't quite made their stand on UCC as it is being debated today quite clear in public. Time for a very short break. On the other side, we'll get you some international updates. There are violent protests and riots sweeping France after a 17-year-old was shot dead by the police. Stay tuned. We'll get you some latest updates. So agree with the governor that yes, he should be dismissed?
Well, there are mixed reactions from Tamil Nadu as far as Senthil Balaji's continuation of the post is concerned. We've seen ever since the governor had decided to dismiss Senthil Balaji as a minister, we've seen a lot of reactions pouring in on social media. Some of them welcomed it, some of them, in fact, questioned the governor's decision. So mixed reactions here ever since Senthil Balaji was raided, and we've seen how, apart from politics, we've also seen a lot of reactions on social media. Some of them say that the governor should in fact, leave it to the government to take decisions. And every time there's any issue, and we've seen how both the state government and the governor continue to remain at loggerheads. We've seen posters saying "Go back, governor," also across the city. So mixed reaction so far as Senthil Balaji is concerned, and as well as the governor's issue is concerned.
Right. Purnima, also, when we talk about the governor having dismissed Senthil Balaji while overriding
the chief minister's decision of keeping him back, holding him back in the cabinet. Do you think the opposition here is trying to maybe, make its way in Tamil Nadu by playing politics of this sort?
Well, absolutely. This is not the first time that we've seen the governor, in fact, say that Senthil Balaji should not continue as a minister. We've seen ever since Senthil Balaji, was raided by the IT. We've seen the opposition parties meet governor and say that till the time the ED completes its investigation, Senthil Balaji should be dropped as a council of ministers. This is something that the BJP and the AIADMK had conveyed to the governor, that Senthil Balaji should not be the minister. And after he was raided as well, when the state government had transferred his portfolios to other ministers, even then we saw the governor in fact say that he personally does not accept and agree to the recommendations of the state government. However, even then, the only thing that we saw from the state government was that the governor does not have the right to do so. So this has, in fact, been an issue that has been active, where the war of words had only escalated between the ruling government as well as the governor.
Carefully.
Welcome back. More than 600 people were arrested overnight across France during a third night of violent protests over the police killing of a teenager earlier this week. Some 40,000 officers were deployed across the country on Thursday in a bid to attempt to quell further clashes, but a total of 667 were detained by the police. In Nanterre, protesters torched cars, barricaded streets and hurled projectiles at police following an earlier peaceful vigil held to pay tribute to the youth. In central Paris, a shoe store was broken into and several people were arrested after store windows were smashed along the Rue de Rivoli shopping street. Marseille, France's second largest city, has decided to ban public demonstrations today. In fact, all public transport will stop from 7 p.m. local time. Here's more on the background.
Unrest erupted again on Thursday in France, marking the third day of clashes over the deadly police shooting of a teenager. In Nanterre, where the incident took place, cars were set on fire, and protesters set up road barricades, hurling projectiles at lines of police. Riot police fired back with tear gas. Earlier in the day, there had been a largely peaceful march for the victim, identified as 17-year-old Nael of North African descent. He was shot dead during a traffic stop, and public anger over the incident led to riots across France this week. The teenager's mother chanted "Justice for Nael" with other supporters in the march. Karima Katem, a local councillor in Blanc-Mesnel, northeast of Paris, says people's patience is running thin.
I think we owe this today to Nael. There have already been so many like him before, and we don't want any more. By killing Nael, they killed our child.
Earlier, President Emmanuel Macron held a crisis meeting with senior ministers over the shooting and condemned the unrest. Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin said 40,000 police officers would be deployed across the country on Thursday. That's nearly 4 times the numbers mobilized the previous day. A video shared on social media, verified by Reuters, shows 2 police officers beside a Mercedes AMG car, with one shooting at the teenage driver at close range as he pulled away. He died shortly afterwards from his wounds. A Nanterre prosecutor said the officer involved had been put under formal investigation for voluntary homicide. The officer has acknowledged firing a lethal shot, the prosecutors added, telling investigators he wanted to prevent a car chase after the teenager allegedly committed several traffic violations. The incident has fed long-standing complaints of police violence and systemic racism inside law enforcement agencies from rights groups and within the low-income, racially mixed suburbs across the country. Authorities deny the accusations.
Let's go across to my colleague Sanjay Suri, who's joining us, keeping a track of what is happening in France and especially Paris. Sanjay, earlier the French President Emmanuel Macron left Brussels, where he was for the EU summit, early to return to France as there's rioting taking place. he has hit out at court totally unjustifiable attacks on public buildings after the boy's killing. And ahead of an emergency meeting, it was also indicated that the French government, the French Prime Minister and President will consider all options in response to the riots. How do you read the situation, and what do you think the government's reaction is going to be?
Well, one of the announcements that we've had just now is that the Interior Minister has announced that buses and trams will be stopped, and this will be across the board just about everywhere from 9 p.m. local time. And as you were just telling us, in Marseille they took the decision earlier to stop any local transportation at 7 p.m. local time and to ban any public meetings. The aim clearly is to deny people the public transportation to move from one place to another. Beyond that, we are in really unknown territory because the government in France has issued an appeal to parents to stop their children going out. Now that seems a bit dubious. The power of parents to restrain teenagers is a little dubious in the most stable of families at the best of times. In this situation, in this circumstance, that's not likely to go very far, but we'll have to see overnight to see if that appeal has added to the measures that have been introduced and announced to see if the violence can at least be reduced, because really the government is trying to prevent a revival of the 2005 riots that went on 3 weeks, through which about 9,000 cars were set alight and thousands were arrested. The government is trying to contain this as quickly as possible now.
I was going to ask you exactly this, Sanjay. I mean, France does have a history of clashes and protests, even rioting. And there's an intersectionality of the police especially, or the law enforcement, and quote-unquote the immigrant population in France. Where do you put in the scale of the rioting that France has seen in recent times, let's say over the last decade, of what we have witnessed? Because this has already gone on for 3 days now.
Well, the 2005 is the benchmark, and that is the most severe that France has seen by way of rioting. And over 3 weeks, we had about 9,000 cars burnt. Here, in 3 days, we've had about 2,000 cars burnt. So if you were to, now not that this is necessarily indicative and a very illuminating parallel, but if you were to broadly even average this out, this certainly is no less in intensity than 2005. In some respects, it could be even more in the 3 days so far. What is the clear parallel is the fact that this is over the killing of an Algerian boy, and 2005 was again over the killing of an Algerian boy along with a black boy. And there is a lot of frustration, because a lot of this is not just about anger, it's about frustration. It's a lot of youth that are non-white, that are deprived, with little education, very little ambition, going nowhere, looking for some things to do to have a good day somehow. And that frustration has spilled out, because when you see youths attacking a shoe store and attacking buses in a bus depot, this is not an expression of grief, it's an expression more of frustration.
Yeah. Well, generally what happens is when you have cases like this and anger is spilling onto the streets, there are people who, you know, enter such protests, and a lot of looting takes place. We've seen that happening in some European countries, even in America recently. But I'll leave it at that, Sanjay Suri. We'll keep coming back to you for more on the French government's response. Well, in international news, the US Supreme Court has struck down race-conscious policies in college admissions, dealing a major blow to decades-old practice that boosted educational opportunities for African Americans and other minorities. But it is a decision that has divided the country, because there are many who feel that colleges had started a practice that actually deprived those who were scoring higher just because they did not come from groups that were considered backward. President Joe Biden has strongly criticized the decision, saying colleges are stronger when they are racially diverse. His predecessor, though, Donald Trump, has called it a great day for America. I leave you with this report. Thanks a lot for watching.
Colleges can no longer take race into consideration as a specific basis for student admissions due to a ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court Thursday.
I'm ecstatic about this decision. It means that Asian Americans can finally get treated on their merits.
Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion for the conservative majority, saying the admissions programs for both Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and failed to offer measurable objectives to justify the use of race.
The Supreme Court's decision on college and university admissions will change how we pursue the educational benefits of diversity.
The court's 3 liberal justices slammed their 6 conservative colleagues in their dissent, saying, quote, "Deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life."
It might have been a tiny bit necessary, but I don't know. I feel like that colleges should still try to have a representative group of all the people.
A survey from the Pew Research Center earlier this year says 50% of U.S. adults say they disapprove of selective colleges and universities taking race and ethnicity into account in order to boost diversity at schools, while 33% approve.
Regardless of charges thrown at the Modi government, at the centre, there's been no scam. And it's a complete contrast to the UPA time. Don't you think if this becomes the 2024 plank, that is trouble for TMC?
Article 29 is intended to protect the interests of minority groups. It provides any section of the citizens residing in India having distinct culture, language or script the right to conserve their culture, language and script.
America is willing to make the same investment in India over the next 10, 20, 30 years, like it did with China. And as President Biden said, America's future is intertwined with India's future, certainly economically speaking.
Loggerheads, we've seen how war of words have escalated. Apart from that, while looking at the situation, we've also seen posters saying "Go back, Ravi" come up every time there's been an issue between the ruling government and the governor. In fact, this is yet another instance where some of the posters have been seen in the city where they've asked the governor to go back. So that is something that happens whenever the issue between the state government and the governor escalates.
There's another showdown between the Tamil Nadu governor and the government. After Governor R.N. Ravi dismissed Senthil Balaji from the state cabinet without consulting the Chief Minister MK Stalin, top Tamil Nadu Raj Bhavan sources have informed CNN News18 that Balaji will continue in council till further orders. Now, Ravi's previous order stands suspended and he will now take opinion from Attorney General. The governor had accused him of abusing his position, influencing the probe and obstructing the course of justice. The Chief Minister had vowed legal action, calling the governor's orders illegal. Remember, Balaji is accused in a money laundering case in the multi-crore cash for job scam when he served as transport minister under the previous AIADMK government. Now, the breaking news that we have on this particular input that we have, and this is from the Raj Bhavan sources who have told CNN News18, that Tamil Nadu Governor R.N. Ravi has decided to take legal opinion from an Attorney General on the issue of Senthil Balaji. Now, Raj Bhavan's previous order stands suspended till the legal opinion is sought. So that is the major focus right now, as in the particular order that had come in previously is suspended. Senthil Balaji is going to continue in council till AG opinion and further orders come in. Now, sources have also told CNN News18 that the Tamil Nadu governor has now informed Chief Minister Stalin about the decision to keep dismissal order of Minister Balaji in abeyance. Now remember, according to a press release from Raj Bhavan, Balaji is facing some serious criminal proceedings, as we already mentioned, and this is in a number of cases of corruption, including taking cash for jobs and money laundering. So this is the particular input that we have from the story in the South, and we have CNN News 18's Arunima joining us in the broadcast to give us more details on this. Arunima, a very good morning to you. Well, quite a lot of debate has gone around the dismissal of Senthil Balaji, and well, now legal advice is being sought. How are we looking at these developments in Tamil Nadu?
Dismissal, which was eventually withdrawn, is the status at this moment. Last night, close to midnight, central government stepped in because there was a lot of criticism whether constitutionally the governor has the power to unilaterally dismiss a minister without consulting the chief minister, without consulting the council. The governor.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. We start with an update coming in on a conversation between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President Vladimir Putin. PM Narendra Modi had a telephone conversation with the President of the Russian Federation. They reviewed the progress in bilateral cooperation and exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. President Putin informed the Prime Minister about the recent developments in Russia. While discussing the situation in Ukraine, PM reiterated his call for dialogue and diplomacy. We'll try and go across to Abhishek for more details on this. Abhishek, Russia has also confirmed this conversation. Do we know how long did this call last and what are the aspects that were covered?
So this was a pretty comprehensive call where both the leaders discussed about all the issues of regional and global importance. India also happens to be the chair of SCO and G20 at the same time. We know next week SCO summit level talks are going to happen virtually, so the discussions were around that also, what should all be the areas that the leaders need to focus. G20 is in the month of September, where Russia has time and again expressed their solidarity and support for India's presidency. The issues were discussed around Ukraine conflict also and how it has been impacting the world. Russian president expressed that despite their willingness, Ukrainians are not interested in having a diplomatic or political solution of the conflict. The issue regarding the recent armed rebellion under the leadership of Prigozhin was also discussed. This is what the Russian side has said. Prime Minister, Russian release from the President House of Kremlin also says that Prime Minister discussed with his Russian counterpart about his recent visit to USA, and the discussions took place on the issues that how the bilateral relationship should go further from here.
Do we know how long did this call last?